Hi, I'm Barbara Albert, co-CEO of 100% Renewables, a consultancy specialising in the development of net zero strategies. And today I'll be talking about how universities are leading in climate action here in Australia. Patrick and me started our business in 2015 after we developed some of the earliest 100% renewable energy strategies for organisations in Australia. It became increasingly clear to us that achieving ambitious climate targets is not only aligned with aspirational sustainability goals, it can be a driver for profit and a significant opportunity for organisations. We have extensive experience in the university sector, which mainly revolves around our core product offers, being the development of net zero strategies and helping our clients achieve carbon neutrality and the climate active. So I'm here today to talk about university leadership in sustainability and specifically net zero. An important part of sustainability is working towards the SDGs. The Sustainable Development Goals were agreed and adopted by the United Nations member states in September 2015, all as part of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The SDGs are a globally accepted framework for sustainable development that recognizes the codependence of society, the economy, and the environment. They are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect our planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. You can see here that there are 17 goals that have inspired new ways of thinking and acting. Personally, my favorite goals are 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 17. Each goal is underpinned by targets, and all up, there are 169 targets. I wanted to give kudos to Australia's leading universities. The Times Higher Education Impact Rankings assesses universities against the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In 2022, 17 Australian universities were ranked in the top 100 universities globally, and Western Sydney University tops the overall rankings. Western Sydney University ranks number 1 out of 1,406 universities from 106 countries and regions across the globe. And they've scored 99.1 out of 100 for their social, ecological, and economic impact. And we are so proud to say that WSU is our client. When we look at net zero specifically, here is how we see your sector. Universities need to lead the push to net zero. There are expectations from current and future students and from staff to be sustainable and to work towards net zero. There is pressure to have sustainability at the core of operations, of teaching, of research, and of engagement. There's also pressure from government agencies and industry research partners and sector networks to work towards net zero. Then there is the SDG alignment as per the impact rankings that I discussed earlier. And there's a need to get grant funding for research and education. So how do you get from zero to be a net zero hero? Well, this is how we see the world. So campus energy efficiency, installing solar, performing detailed energy audits, looking at your operational carbon footprint, and getting your buildings Green Star certified is what we consider step 1 in the journey. Once you start working on engaging your operations and your academic stakeholders, and you start developing targets in line with science, and you work on your net zero or carbon neutral or your renewable strategy, then that would be considered step 2. Now, if you extend the carbon accounting and your decarbonization strategy to the full value chain, or you are switching to 100% renewable electricity, or you go for climate active certification, we would consider that to be step 3. Now, step 4 is a fully decarbonized operations and net zero campuses, where your fleet vehicles are also fully electrified and electric vehicles, where net zero is integrated in your teaching and your research, where you've divested yourself from fossil fuels, and where you're working towards a goal of being climate positive. In Australia, 24 universities are between step 2 and step 3. So some universities have progressed to step 2 and some are at step 3, with, of course, the goal being to reach step 4. Now, if you look at our infographic here, the payoffs that you can achieve when you move towards net zero and step 4 is that you're working towards climate leadership. You'll be able to increase your impact rankings. You'll be able to attract more students, and you'll be able to attract the right staff. You'll be able to reduce your operational costs, and you're contributing to a sustainable society, and you'll find it easier to access funding. Now, we've been tracking the commitments of Australian universities for several years. We published our first blog post on ambitious commitments in 2017. Now, this year, 2022, 24 universities have now got ambitious climate action goals. Out of the 24 universities in the ambitious commitments list, 15 have committed to 100% renewables by or before 2030, 17 have committed to carbon neutrality by or before 2030, and 2 have committed to net zero greenhouse gas emissions targets by 2050. If you want to find out more, go to our blog post. We'll put the links in the description. You can also download a PDF of the leadership benchmarking report. Now, how can you move as a university? How can you move to step 4 in your net zero journey? Let's have a look at the science-aligned net zero strategy. In the absence of any measures, your business as usual emissions may likely grow with a growing university. But because the grid is decarbonizing and there is more renewables that are coming onto the grid, such as solar and wind farms, the grid's getting greener, and so therefore your electricity consumption is getting greener. You might be working on reducing waste on your campuses. You may be working on switching from gas to electric equipment. You might be working on electrifying your fleet. And you may be working on your value chain emissions. So these are your scope 3 emissions, and you may have a strategy around those scope 3 to bring them down as well. Very hard to reach net zero without the purchase of carbon offsets. So say you went to 90% reduction by 2050 and you eliminate the rest of your carbon footprint to get to net zero by purchasing removal-based carbon offsets. So removal-based carbon offsets means, for instance, trees that sequester carbon out of the atmosphere, so remove carbon from the atmosphere. And by doing that, by achieving a 90% reduction in the long term by 2050, and by only offsetting 10% of your residual carbon footprint with removal-based offsets, you would then be aligning yourself with the SBTi net zero standard, bearing in mind that you will also have to work on interim targets in the near term and in the medium term to make sure that you achieve this sort of emissions reduction. So that is a net zero aligned pathway. Now, what you can also do is go carbon neutral right away. So you could have a goal of working towards net zero for the long term, and you can work on your decarbonization strategy. But alternatively, you can also pursue a carbon neutral goal now. So you can get certified under programs such as Climate Active, which means that you measure your carbon footprint, you still work on your decarbonization strategy, but at the same time, you purchase carbon offsets yearly to achieve and then maintain a carbon neutral status for your university. Now, here's our second nature, which is part of the Race to Zero for universities, sees universities moving to net zero. It's all about operational improvements. But here at 100% Renewables, we are applying a wider lens on what is needed to best position your university for a net zero economy. At 100% Renewables, we assess organizations against 5 criteria, being brand, people, operations, products, and climate risk. So brand is how you portray your university to your staff, your immediate stakeholders, and to the outside world. Of course, your stakeholders are students, inclusive of foreign students, staff, funders, research, philanthropists, investors, governments. You might be collaborating with other businesses. So your brand is what you stand for. It's your vision, it's your mission and your values. It's about committing to ambitious climate action goals and acting on them and communicating your achievements internally as well as externally. Now moving on to people. And a university can only be as good as the people that support your goals, and you will succeed in a net zero economy if your senior leadership team recognizes the climate emergency and drives climate action from the top throughout the university, inspiring both staff and also your students. So hopefully your students will be your brand ambassadors. Now, to prepare for a net zero economy, both your organization and value chain need to drive towards emissions reduction. To succeed, you will need to develop your carbon footprint, evaluate your opportunities, and create a pathway to net zero that is properly resourced. And in a net zero economy, today's high carbon products and services will need to transition to carbon neutral and a circular economy. Leading businesses will go further than this and look for opportunities for net zero enabled growth. So as universities, you commercialize products and have patents, and your teaching should be integrated into your courses. And that means all courses. So whether that's accounting, whether it's a legal course, or whether that's nursing, all courses should have sustainability and net zero as part of your offers. And as you know, much will change as society continues to experience the worsening impacts of climate change. And to thrive in this environment, you will need to thoroughly assess and address your physical and transition risks so you can adapt and take advantage of the opportunities a net zero world brings. So we've developed a net zero diagnostic to help you determine where you are currently at and what excellence or leading practice looks like. So you can go to our webpage at 100%renewables.com.au and click on the link next to our image that then links you to the diagnostic, and we'll put the link in the description as well. So this is an example of a sample result, and I would encourage every one of you to take the diagnostic. It's for free. You can take it at any time that you like. You can take it now, you can take it again in a few months, in a year, to see how you've progressed down the net zero path. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Please subscribe to our channel for more videos such as this. Thank you, and I hope to see you in my next video.